June is turning into an ill-fated month for Russia's armed forces, with a daring Ukrainian drone attack on airfields stretching from Siberia in the east to Murmansk in the north that Ukraine claims destroyed 41 large planes, or about one-third of Russia's strategic bomber fleet. Before the month ends, Russia will probably suffer its millionth casualty since its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, based on current trends of about 1,000 to 1,200 soldiers killed or injured every day. No Soviet or Russian war since World War II has even come close to Ukraine in terms of fatality rate, said the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a think tank in Washington. Ukraine has sustained nearly 400,000 casualties, it added, with between 60,000 and 100,000 deaths. In the northeastern Kharkiv region, Russian forces have advanced on average of only 50 meters per day, according to the study. That is slower than the British and French advance in the Battle of the Somme in the trench warfare of World War I. The slow rate of advance has meant Russia has seized only 1% of Ukrainian territory since January 2024, which the authors called a paltry amount. Russia now occupies around 20% of Ukrainian territory, including the Crimean Peninsula that Moscow annexed in 2014. But Russia's dwindling territorial gains have not led to a change in strategy. To sustain Russia's staggering rate of casualties, the Kremlin has enlisted convicts from its prisons and welcomed more than 10,000 troops from its ally North Korea. But it has left the children of Moscow and St. Petersburg elites largely untouched. Increased sanctions on Russia and continuing US and European military assistance to Ukraine would likely raise the costs for Moscow of a protracted war and could facilitate peace talks. Russia's poor performance has likely been caused by several factors. The Russian military's reliance on dismounted infantry and mechanized forces to take Ukrainian territory, Russia's failure to use operational fires in a coordinated way that enables maneuver, and Ukraine's effective utilization of defense in depth. For the United States, increased sanctions on Russia and continuing US and European military assistance to Ukraine would likely raise the costs for Moscow of a protracted war and could facilitate peace talks. Likewise, in the fall of 2022, Ukraine conducted multiple successful offensives.
Following its daring military operation that crushed dozens of strategic bombers deep in Russian territory last week, Ukraine is now preparing for another major attack on Russia, Washington Post has reported, citing unnamed intelligence sources. According to the publication, Kyiv, this time, is preparing to strike Russian ships in the Pacific Ocean. The publication reported that Ukraine seeks to use unmanned boats hidden in cargo containers to strike Russian ships and their allies in the northern Pacific Ocean. The possibility of striking Russian troops in Moldova's Transnistria breakaway region that has a Russian military presence has also been under consideration, but the opening of a new front was later postponed, the Washington Post reports. As the publication writes, after U.S. Donald Trump abandoned his peacemaker role in Russia-Ukraine peace negotiations, Kyiv now, more than ever, depends on its own intelligence services and demonstrates the ability to deliver serious blows deep into Russia. Amid the deadlock in the 3 years of war of attrition, Ukraine's main counterintelligence agency, the Security Service, also known as SBU, carried out its audacious attack on Russian military airfields in an attempt to reset the negotiation process. The operation, codenamed Putin or Spiderweb, was prepared for a year and a half and targeted 4 military airfields across Russia on Sunday. Ukraine reported that the SBU hit Russian nuclear-capable bombers in the attack and inflicted Russia military losses amounting to $7 billion. The Spiderweb operation proved that nowhere in Russia was safe and underlined how vulnerable Kremlin was. Following the surprise attack, the Russian army started moving its bombers away from Ukraine border. Russia is withdrawing its strategic bombers from Ukrainian border following Kiev's surprise drone strikes on Russian airfields on Sunday. Kremlin is transferring its military aircraft to various parts of the country, even to northeastern region of Chukota, fearing new UAV attacks by Ukraine, local telegram channels have reported. One of the two 160 strategic bomber missile carriers has been spotted at the Anadyr airfield in Chukotka Peninsula, 6,770 kilometers from Ukraine and only 660 kilometers from the western borders of the United States. At least 41 Russian strategic bombers worth $7 billion, including two 22M3 and two 95MS, were destroyed as Ukraine's security service conducted a large-scale attack on 4 Russian military airfields on Sunday. The attack is believed to severely undermine Russia's air defenses. Codenamed the Spiderweb, the military operation had been in preparation for a year and a half. It was prepared in a few stages. First, Ukrainian FPV drones were smuggled into Russian territory, where they were hidden in wooden makeshift houses placed on trucks near airfields. Next, the drones were activated via remote controller and directed towards designated military targets. The historic operation became Ukraine's longest-range attack and destroyed 34% of Russia's fleet of air missile carriers. The large-scale attack reminded Moscow that no military infrastructure was safe from Ukrainian attacks. Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky hailed the operation as brilliant, stressing that all security service employees involved in the attack had been safely removed from the territory of Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday said Kremlin would respond to Ukraine strikes. For days on, and Ukraine is still digesting the full implications of Operation Spider's Web, Sunday's massive assault on Russia's strategic aviation. The agency which orchestrated the attack, the Security Service of Ukraine, released additional, vivid footage of the attacks in progress, as well as tantalizing glimpses into how the whole complex operation was conducted. Satellite images that have emerged since Sunday, showing the wrecked outlines of planes sitting on the tarmac at the Olynya, Ivanova, Dyagilevo and Belia airbases, also help tell the story of the operation's unprecedented success. For Ukrainian observers, the whole operation, a year and a half in the making, remains a marvel. Brian Krasenstein, a renowned political analyst, says that this kind of operation, conducted this deep inside enemy territory, using mobile disguised platforms, has never been done before. Not at this scale. Not with this level of impact. Russia just lost a significant chunk of its long-range bomber fleet. And unlike missiles, bombers aren't quickly replaceable, he said. Oleksandr Kovalenko, a defense analyst at the information resistance group think tank, offers a sober view of the situation, distinguishing between the impact on the battlefield situation and on the enemy's potential for terrorist attacks. He emphasizes that the affected aircraft are not the ground attack or fighter platforms that have a direct impact on the frontline situation. I would not reckon this a turning point of the war, because we are not talking about combat aircraft that are actively used on the front line. We are talking about the aircraft that were mainly used to terrorize the civilian population, bombing cities in deep rear areas of Ukraine and delivering strikes on energy and civilian infrastructures. Pavlo Lekichuk, head of security programs at the Center for Global Studies, Strategy XXI, points out that successes on the battlefield are the foundation for diplomatic victories, and it is politicians and diplomats who should consolidate, on the diplomatic front, the successes achieved by our military on the battlefield. Political scientist Serhiy Turan complements this picture with an analysis of how the operation will affect the general perception of Russia in the world. Talk about Russia winning its war against Ukraine will decrease, as will fears of it hypothetically launching a war against the West. However, it is much more important that confidence in Ukraine's capabilities will create a positive context for support. They in the West tend to help not the weak, but those who know how to win. Turan notes with a hint of irony that the fall of Russia's image as a powerful military force will make everyone happy, even Comrade Xi will be happy, although he will not tell anyone about it. Valery Romanenko, an aviation expert, completes the picture, emphasizing that the Russians have lost not just aircraft, but the illusion of security. There simply aren't many airfields in Russia that can accommodate such planes. Theoretically, the surviving planes can be redeployed to Olynya, Mozdok, or Sarajevo, but even there they are not safe from attacks. There is no longer a safe airbase. According to Romanenko, Operation Spiderweb has busted the myth about invulnerability, because the war has come to Engels, to Belia, to Vladivostok. Ukraine has demonstrated the ability to deliver pinpoint strikes that change the geopolitical balance. Former Swedish Prime Minister Carl Bildt said, "Not even the 007 movies managed to come up with something like this." Former U.S. Army commander in Europe Ben Hodges endorsed Ukraine's strategy with an apt military aphorism: "Better to kill the archer instead of trying to stop all of the arrows." U.S. Congressman Don Bacon also commented briefly, "Putin sowed the wind and is now reaping the whirlwind." Dutch Defense Minister Ruben Brekelmans reminded us that it is not for the first time Ukraine is surprising the world. Ukraine has surprised us so many times over the last 3 years. Just a few examples: the Moskva counter-offensive, Kursk, and now the drone attack on Russian bombers. Let's keep up our support. We can be sure Ukraine will keep up its surprises.